All right, hello, and welcome back to Behind the Lines with Gabe and Kev. This is your week 15, and now moving into week 16, the second round of the playoffs review. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm good, in general. Just ready to talk some football, talk some shop.
Yeah, ready to get into it. And then there were four. There are four teams left in both the playoffs and the Poop Bowl playoffs. There will be four matchups that we'll be looking at this week, and before we do that, let's go ahead and dive into our Week 15 review. As we always do, my matchup here at the top, I took on Alex's team. It was the Slim Reapers Revenge Squad versus RB University, and I won 107.1 to 103.4. It was a very close match. I had to sweat out a Jordan Addison versus DJ Moore battle where DJ Moore needed to outscore Addison by like 5.5. He ended up only outscoring him by 1.7. So I got the dub, but this really came down to Devontae Smith. He got his revenge. Finally, people are fearing the Reaper, and maybe they will fear him more in round two. He puts up 28 points this week, leads the team. First time he's done that for me this season. I did draft him in the third round, so I'm not expecting him to lead the team every week, but I would love to, as a guy who loves Devontae Smith. Puts up 28 points in a really tough matchup against Pittsburgh, whereas Saquon Barkley only puts up 9.4. Usually he outscores Devontae Smith 10-1 in every game so far this season. But if we look at my side of the roster more specifically, the big stack, Joe Burrow and Jamar, only put up 18 points each. It was really depressing, especially because I predicted it right. If you guys remember in the pod last week, I said I think this Cincinnati-Tennessee game could end up being one of those shootout games where both teams put up, 20 plus. And maybe even more, and the Bengals put up 37 points, and Joe Burrow and Jamar only putting up 18 points each. Kind of sucks. Joe Burrow threw 2 picks, I believe, one that was a tipped pick, so not really his fault, but one was just a bad pass, and then Jamar never got in the end zone. So puts up 18 points with just efficiency, but the rest of the team, Ramondre puts up 9.5, Achane with 14.5, and then Jordan Addison with 13.3, and then obviously the donut from Waddle. He goes down pretty early in the game, I think sometime in the second quarter, with a knee injury. It was a play that he wasn't even involved in on. He was blocking and got rolled up on from behind. It's reported to be a non-serious, non-surgery necessary injury, but this could have drastic effects for me as I move into round two. And looking at Alex's side of the ball, good game from Jordan Love, who played on Sunday night with 21.5. But the running backs, this is running back university. It's what the team is named after, and only one of the 4 starting running backs getting into that double-digit mark being Breece Hall in kind of a shootout game against Jacksonville. He does underperform at 13.1, but all 4 of your running backs combining for 38 points-ish is pretty tough. His 2 receivers, which really haven't been the highlight of his squad, were his second and third highest point scores on the week, so not the greatest, and it wasn't enough to best me here, especially as we got into that Jordan Addison versus DJ Moore battle. And I would like to say Alex came over and watched some of the games, and before the evening round of games around 4 p.m., I said all I need is Ramondre Stevenson to equalize Saquon Barkley, and then I need Jordan Addison to put up like 12 and DJ Moore to only put up like 15. And Alex can attest to this. I did say that, and it ended up happening. Ramondre outscores Saquon by 0.1, and then Jordan Addison puts up 13 and DJ Moore 15. So I somewhat spoke it into existence, but only putting up 107 in the playoffs, not really awe-inspiring.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of very unfortunate for Alex with the running back duo only coming up with about 18 points there. The running back duo that's been doing it all season, they've been great all season. They get to the playoffs and just suck. And I guess it's just how it goes sometimes. So, very bad beat. One of Saquon's worst games of the year, potentially Chuba's worst game of the year as well. Actually, his second worst game of the year. Oh no, third. He had a bad week 1. But so, I don't know. It's just very unfortunate. This happens though. You get into the playoffs and a team that was really, really strong just has a really bad week. We saw this with Tal as well. We'll get to that, but this is how fantasy playoffs go. So you get the donut from Jalen Waddle and injury, which of course is also horrible to have in the playoffs. But you're able to prevail just because Alex just has a pretty bad week here for a playoff game. So sometimes you got to count your blessings and just go next. But good win there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in the previous week, Alex dropped Zach Ertz, who I picked up to be my tight end streamer, and he was looking like he was going to be a big part of the game plan. He caught 2 passes early, and on the second pass he caught, which was a 25-yarder, he got down to the 1-yard line, couldn't make it into the end zone, and when he got tackled, he smashed his head into the turf, out with a concussion for the rest of the game. And so 2 guys going out to injury, and I still get the win. It feels good.
I didn't even realize he got hurt too. That's a bad beat. I didn't realize that happened as well. So yeah, able to dodge an L despite having 2 injuries is definitely very nice to have. It's just that, obviously you won't have those guys next week, but at least you can,
feel good,
get back and reset. Yeah, get a reset. Our next matchup here though is Brock 3 and Bucky and the Bucks boys. Henry, another unfortunate playoff outing for Henry. Back-to-back seasons kind of coming in. It's a pretty solid team, but he gets into the playoffs and just his opponent goes nuclear on him yet again. So,
and he has injuries. He gets into the playoffs and then his team gets injured at the end of the year.
Yeah, it is just kind of the story of bad luck so far for him in his short 2 playoff years. But Noah puts up 172. I'll cover Henry's team first though. He gives up 111. Brock Purdy gives up 2 points on Thursday night. That's just an absolute shaft. I mean, you kind of know that the game is really not in your favor when that happens on Thursday night.
And
that's a really tough thing to come back from.
Not to interrupt you really quick, but when that happened, obviously, I live with Henry. He was killing himself. He was like, holy fuck, I don't know why I started Brock Purdy. I should have started Tua. I know that Tua is going to put up a good score this week against Houston. And, oh my God, it was just the dumbest decision. He was like, and now I'm basically out of the playoffs, because I started Brock Purdy. And then, obviously, Tua puts up negative 0.1. And, yeah.
Cool. Dude, yeah, it really was some of the worst QB fantasy performances I've ever laid my eyes on. I saw a guy start to my brother started to in a family league, and he was devastated that he just got absolutely blown out. And it's you can't really win without a QB. So I guess to help Henry's mental, there was nothing to be done here. This game was over regardless, but obviously 2 points for Brock Purdy is just a horrible feeling on a Thursday night. He gets Jalen Warren, only gives him 2 points as well. Jonathan Taylor only 10. Jonathan Taylor was just a story of sadness.
Oh my God, he
year.
dropped the 40-yard touchdown before.
Yeah, he fumbles on the 1-yard line, dropped the football before crossing the plane. So I mean, that's another 6 points that Henry should have received for that. And just in general, he was just very disappointing this season. I drafted him, I think 9 overall, or maybe 10 overall, something like that.
You're a homer. See, you talk about me being a homer for Devontae Smith. You are a homer.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Jonathan Taylor's had his years, though. I mean, he was RB1 overall.
Devontae Smith has had his years. He was wide receiver 18 last year.
Yeah, but that's not RB1.
Okay.
But, I mean, you are right. Jonathan Taylor has fallen off significantly, unfortunately. And this was a pretty bad year for him, so I will take that one. I could have had Saquon instead. I took JTA, but whatever. Huge game from Devontae Adams. Obviously, goes
legacy.
It doesn't
game.
do enough, but this was a monstrous game for Devontae Adams. 42.8 points. I think that's got to be wide receiver 1 on the week. I don't know for sure. I'm going to assume it is against that horrible Jacksonville secondary. So maybe that Aaron Rodgers Devontae Adams stack is going to be relevant in the playoffs. If you guys are in other leagues, obviously it won't be relevant in ours anymore, unfortunately. But Tyreek Hill, another guy who was just absolutely terrible this season. Just really disappointing. He wasn't terrible, but very disappointing. He had a couple big games. Only puts up 5 here. Trey McBride, 17. He was a pretty solid engine all season for Henry, but didn't catch a touchdown.
He never got a touchdown. He never got a touchdown.
He caught one fumble recovery.
Yes, but he has not caught a touchdown pass.
Caught one. Yeah, dude, it's unreal. I don't understand. It is one of the most mind-boggling. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Jaden Reed with 11, just as projected, and then 19 from Jonnu. Jonnu Smith really came along great at the end of the season.
Also, can I say, God, if I had Jonnu Smith on my roster still, I would be I think, but maybe second to Noah, but contending as like the strongest roster, but I clearly have a
Yeah.
hole at tight end, and like it goes back to commissioner era. I should not be making any moves to force drop players and add players. You gotta take into account that for your own roster. I'm not doing any of that shit anymore. I learned my lesson the hard way.
Yeah, dude, in the last 5 weeks, including this week,
I know.
28,
I'm well
23,
aware,
21,
Kevin.
13, and 19. Like, it's unreal
I'm well
how much
aware.
he's come around lately. So, Henry did this 2 tight end thing, and it worked out well. It was not an issue, that part at least. Of course, the Brock Purdy thing is a problem, and Jalen Warren not being good either. That comes along with the drafting CMC situation. So, Henry, just kind of an unfortunate year. Not able to get the win here. But let's go to the brighter side of this of the box score here with Noah's team. 172 points. He puts on an absolute show. Definitely going to be striking some fear into everybody's eyes. You see what
Into
he
Wyatt's
did,
eyes.
and you're just happy that you didn't face him this week. So,
Oh, I'm very.
Baker and Mike Evans stack. It's right up there with the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase stack. It's been unreal. Definitely one of the best stacks in the
And-
NFL right now.
Might I add a reminder? Sorry, not to cut you off again, but
You're good.
Eli sold this stack for Marvin Harrison Jr. in like week 3.
Yeah. Was it both of them? Did you get
Yes,
something else?
I think
Nothing else in
I
it?
think it was that. I think it was that 2-for-1.
I didn't. I mean, that's. There's not. I mean, hindsight is 2020, I suppose. But good God, that is not good. But Jamar Chase, or sorry, God, I don't even know what I'm saying. Jameer Gibbs, 28 points. Now David Montgomery is injured.
For the rest of the season.
You have to wonder how much this will impact Gibbs. It's also possible they don't want to give him too much volume. I don't know if he's really a volume guy. So
He's a smaller running back.
yeah, he still produces regardless. So we'll see how much that affects him. Bucky Irving with 13. Eagle Collins, 17 right at projected. Puka, 17 right at projected. Despite that game being terrible, Puka still got his, so that kind of says a lot. It's kind of a testament to how productive he really is as a player. TJ Hawkinson gives 10. Hawkinson's been incredibly mid. But, he, like last year was much more involved before his injury. This year he's been, it's a new QB, of course, no longer Kirk Cousins, now it's Sam Darnold, but it
And
just doesn't
Sam
seem
Darnold
like
had
throw.
Sam Darnold had 10 weeks to get comfortable throwing to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to rely on TJ Hawkinson as much as Kirk Cousins was checking down all the time last year.
Yeah. But, he's been serviceable, but he hasn't really, been what people kind of hoped he would be coming back from his injury. And then finally Jake London right at his projection, he caught a pretty long touchdown there in that horrible, horrible Monday Night Football game.
God.
But I mean, now obviously everybody knows Michael Penix is the QB, so
How does
Drake
that
London
affect
has had
Drake
he's had a solid season. He's kind of fallen off lately. I mean, as the demise of Kirk Cousins has been so obvious
Rampant.
to anybody who watches the Falcons. But Penix is a guy who is capable of stretching the field. He's capable of really airing it out, but I don't even know if that's Drake London's game necessarily. It's more Darnell Mooney. So I'm curious what Drake London's involvement is going to be. I imagine it's still going to be fine, regardless of the QB, just because of the kind of route runner that he is. But at the same time, last year, like with Desmond Ridder, he was not good at all. But also, that's I think there should be a significant difference between Desmond Ridder and Michael Penix.
I mean, as a
Hopefully.
Falcons fan, you would hope.
I hope.
right?
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, that's true. Especially considering draft capital and college production too, but still.
Also, what's his name? Terry Knowles looks like a fucking genius now because the GM for the Falcons who decided to draft Penix at 9 overall or whatever it was.
Facts.
Like he
Yeah, it was 9.
he must have been he must have known that Kirk Cousins was not long for this world and then Kirk like week 2 had that 500-yard game and everybody was like, "Oh, he's back."
Yeah.
And then I think in the past 4 games he's thrown like 14 interceptions.
Yeah, he threw his first touchdown. I think it was 1 touchdown and like 9 interceptions. I could even be it could be more than 9 too. It was rough, man. I don't know. It just kind of it's a testament to the terrible front office of the Falcons. Like if you're gonna draft, I get it. You want a guy to learn from it, but they paid Kirk Cousins so much money.
$80
so
million.
it's Dude, 100 million guaranteed.
Oh, it's
180
100.
4 years, 100 guaranteed. Yeah. So 180 was the total. He's not going to get that 180, but still, like
Yeah,
$100 million, just
out the
give
window.
it to the guy and let him walk. Now he's a coach, paying a quarterback coach $100 million. But I don't know. We should continue on.
Yeah,
Continue on
we'll
going.
move on
I'll
from
lose
this.
my
I
mind
mean,
here.
good win, Noah. You put up a great score. Unfortunately, not the high score of the season, as you know. My 182 still tops that, but we move on and into the third
He
playoff.
could have gotten it if he started Jared Goff. Jared Goff had a 50 bomb on
He
his
could
bench
have,
too.
but he didn't. He said he thought about starting Goff too, but you know,
Yeah, you got to go with your guy. Got to go
yeah.
with your guy.
Noah maybe could have had the high score all time had he started Goff.
Yeah, he would have gotten 17 more, which would be 189.
No, I got 192. That's all time.
Yeah. So if he started Tajay Spears, but there'd be no world where he
Yeah,
would have
no
done that.
world.
So it's kind of
Either way, we'll dive into our third and final matchup in the playoffs here. We have the Tush Push Kush squad just barely squeaking into the playoffs at 7-7. You know, we talked about it a lot. Had Al upset Eli. He scored enough. Had Eli just not started Zach Charbonnet, or had Eli just lost the game in some other way and gone 0-14, Al would be in the playoffs here. And Al put up like 140 something too. So Al would have beaten Tal, and you know, Al would be moving on to the second round of the playoffs right now had that one thing gone his way. But looking at this matchup, Wyatt puts up 141 and Tal puts up 106. Gets the win here. Tal's squad kind of fell off toward the end of the year. It was looking very strong for a long time. He was, you know, for a couple of weeks almost the favorite to get the bye and, you know, move on into that second round regardless. But here, the team doesn't put it together, and we'll look at Tal's side first over here on the right. Starting it off with your two hottest performers, Amon-Ra St. Brown puts up 37 points in that loss to Buffalo, 42-48. Jaden Daniels puts up 27.6 in that 20-19 win over the Saints. And other than that, the rest of the squad was pretty rough. I mean, Pacheco with 5, Kyle Pitts with 6. God, he's been a horrible disappointment. Juwan Jennings with 5, Javonte Williams with 4, Calvin Ridley with 9, and then Joe Mixon, I mean, he got double digits, but still half of what he was projected. And you crossed the 100 mark, but as the 2 seed, that's not really a score that you're comfortable with. And then looking at the other side of the ball, you know, Wyatt had 2 guys put up 32 points, Jalen Hurts in that win against Pittsburgh and Brian Thomas in that loss to the Jets. A.J. Brown also puts up 25 points, you know, another great stack here into the playoffs. And this is a point that I'll talk about here after, but I think it's showing, you know, the value of having a good stack. And then if we look at Wyatt's running backs, you know, he's had guys that have been underperforming, Aaron Jones and Tony Pollard over the past couple of weeks. Kind of get back to normal, at least Aaron Jones does, 18.6. Tony Pollard struggled a lot and then kind of went down with injury. Obviously, it led to Tajay Spears with the huge game. We'll see how Tony Pollard's health is as Wyatt moves on to face Noah in round 2. And then lastly, Travis Kelce with 6.7, DK with 5.8, and Cortland Sutton with a good game, 12.2. He's been really surprising this year. Bo Nix is number 1 target, and he just gets a lot of volume. But the point I was talking about, if we take a look, we can look next week, but you know, we've got the Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown stack on Wyatt's team. We've got the Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans stack on Noah's team. We've got Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase on my team. And then Charlie's team is the only one in the playoffs that doesn't have a stack. And I've been a proponent of it for a long time. I think I've had a stack every year of this league. I think that especially if you pick the right offense and the offense that's going to get a lot of touchdowns, a lot of points, it just pays dividends. When you can get 12 points on a single play, it could be a 5-yard pass, it could be a 30-yard pass, depending on the team. But being able to stack touchdowns like that really pays dividends, especially when you get the right team and you build the right team around your stack.
Yeah, it's pretty popular too. So I mean, I think you're gonna see it more often than not. I've never really had one in this league at least. I won it last year with that. I had Dak as my QB. I was trying to get CeeDee Lamb because it would have been a good stack, but I was unable to get him from Henry last year. But you could definitely do it without. But like it is, I mean, it's a popular strategy for a reason. If you end up getting a good one, it will obviously go a long way. And you know, it's a huge reason why Wyatt's able to get it here. I also just want to go on Brian Thomas, man. He is
Rookie of the year?
unreal, actually. Yeah, he's so unreal. Like, this dude is a baller, bro. Mac Jones is throwing him the football, and like they're
Still
playing the
getting in
Jets
there.
secondary. Like he's getting clamped, or not clamped. He's getting guarded by like Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed. It's like, dude, this dude is just like, what can you do? I mean, what can you do to this guy?
I
He's
mean,
unbelievable. LSU is known for having these freaks, so I think he's another one right here. These wide receiver freaks, that is.
he's definitely going to go up a lot in draft next year. And I think in terms of NFL, if he was on any better team, I mean, the Jags are going to be one of the worst offenses in the league this year. If he was on any better team, he'd be a shoe in for Rookie of the Year right now. Like if, I mean, I don't even know what teams drafted above the Jags this year, but I think the Jags took him at like 10, 11.
He was a pretty high pick. Let's see. Um, well, I'm on his prospect stuff. He was 23 actually, so not super
Oh,
high,
really? Wow. The Jags
but
did
he's
good
still a
last year.
first. Yeah, he's still a first round pick. Um, was last year the year that they played the Chargers in the playoffs, or was that the year before?
It might
It
have
could have been the
been.
year before.
But I mean,
So I know
just
that they beat
looking at the receivers that were drafted over him, I mean, obviously you have Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., but Roma Dunze
Dunze.
has been really mid this year. I mean, I don't even know who, I guess he's played for the Jets, the offensive tackle. And then beyond that, you get deep before the next receiver is taken. I mean, the last receiver taken is Roma Dunze at 9, and then Brian
But
Thomas
he was
Jr. at
4.
23.
Yeah, so he's 4.
And
And I think he's been better than the other two guys too, and
definitely.
he's on a comparably bad team.
Yes,
Um,
definitely to Malik
Obviously the other
Neighbors, yeah. And the
definitely to Malik
Bears.
Neighbors. Yeah, I mean Marv has Kyler. He's had his moments, but I don't think he's really been what people expected him to be as a rookie. Um, yeah, dude, he's been absolutely insane. I think he's gonna be really, really solid going forward, regardless. So I think his draft capital is gonna be shot way up for next
Yes.
season.
I
But
mean, potential
another huge reason,
second
yeah,
to third round corner somewhere around the
yeah,
turn. Yeah.
absolutely. Another reason why Wyatt's team has been, so solid is when Brian Thomas is capable of having these huge 30 bomb games. So, if he gets high here down for this stretch, he has had his games where he has been really bad, which makes him, you just kind of start him and hope for the upside game. This was the best game of his career. But, he's shown flashes of greatness. So, if he stays hot for the playoff stretch, like an Amon-Ra St. Brown type situation on his rookie year, they could really pay dividends for Wyatt.
Yeah, and then moving into our last matchup of the week here, you want to take it? It is new name of the team here, team name versus Swifties for Smirnoff.
Yeah, the poop bowl matchup, so I won't spend too long on it. This is the playing game. Massive game from Lamar Jackson. Really big game from Al here, honestly. Not even a bad game from Sam, but massive game from Lamar. Nothing new. It's really tough to lose the poop bowl when you have QB1 on your team, so not super surprising that Al is already out of the poop bowl playoffs. Big game from Chase Brown. We kind of mentioned that game earlier, and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow weren't as good. That's because of that man. Terry McLaurin caught 2 touchdowns in this game, 26, and then just some kind of duds around, kind of rest away. But it was plenty enough to get 142. On the other side, Sam puts up 119, not a bad score, but he is going to take the L. He will have to play Eli in the playoffs. He'll stay alive. Mahomes gives him 19, Rico Dowdle 15. Really no bad games except for Debo, who's been a really big disappointment, but just no really big upside game from any of his guys, and it kind of just lands him like right at his projected mark, which was I assume to be about 119. Oh, it
And
was projected 121, so he landed right on projection.
it wouldn't have mattered anyway because if you remember from our talk last week, Kevin, he was starting Amari Cooper in that spot. He had the double Bills receiver thing going on, and then
Yeah.
Al ended up dropping Debo Samuel to pick up Adam Thielen, and it worked out for him this week. I mean, Adam Thielen doubles Debo's score, and then Sam obviously streams him, puts up 4.9 when Amari Cooper put up the donut, so it didn't matter for Sam in the end, but yeah, he's been
I'll
awful.
drop Debo. I can't
Yes.
believe he's like a droppable asset now. That's like crazy to me.
I mean, he is. He's
And,
like,
and it obviously, yeah, it was obviously the right decision.
he's
Which
wide
makes me
receiver 50.
dude, it's unreal. Like
And like with
it's so
Brandon
strange.
Ayuk down too, you would expect just purely based on volume he'd be serviceable.
It's so strange, man. how bad he's been this year. But congrats to Al. I know it's not really the result that he wanted. Um, but at least he does win the game, so he won't have to
Suffer
kind of
the
have any more
consequences.
anxiety.
Yeah.
And he can just kind of put the season behind him and start rebuilding for next year. Um, but Sam will take the L and he will have to play Eli. So
Yeah.
we shall forge on to week 16.
Yeah, and as a quick note, Bennett puts up an absolute monster score in the warm up game versus you. You put up 64 cup with the donut. Kamara goes down to injury as well, and it doesn't matter because you both get the bye. So Bennett was kind of informed of that a little bit late, and unfortunate for him. But yeah, now your real matchup begins this week.
I wouldn't have had a very good week at all, but I did start Braylon Allen, who,
I
0 points.
mean, I think your roster, you may have scored 70.
Yeah, I would have scored a little bit more. But yeah, no, it wouldn't have been good.
Either way, we'll chug
That is
along.
why I'm in the poop bowl.
Yeah, and that's the way that it goes sometimes. But moving on to week 16, we got my matchup here at the top. Slim Reaper's Revenge versus Baby Want Milky. The 8-6 fifth seed team taking on the Juggernaut. David versus Goliath. Charlie at 10-4 in first place, got the bye, walked into round 2. And now he's projected to be the underdog at the moment. I mean, 126 to 120 is the current projection. And if we take a quick look at the matchups here, there's some interesting ones on both sides. We'll start on Charlie's side. Josh Allen, obviously, against New England. New England has been one of the worst teams in the league. I'm very scared for this. I know that New England's defense it's been rough this year. I mean, outside of Christian Gonzalez, Christian Barmore, and Keon White, those are like the three guys that I can name who I've watched make plays. Everybody else is missing tackles, allowing touchdowns wide open. I'm very nervous that Josh Allen could have another legacy game. However, the one thing I will be thankful for is at least it's versus New England. The Bills traditionally play pretty tight games against New England. Now, this will be the worst New England team they've played probably since Josh Allen's been there. But I'm hoping that some of that division rivalry energy makes its way into the game and Josh Allen can maybe be proven a little bit human. I am scared, but I'm hopeful. Derrick Henry, obviously against Pittsburgh. We just saw Saquon take on that team, and it worked out in my favor. Saquon only putting up 9.5. I'm hoping that Pittsburgh can shut down Derrick Henry in a very similar way and limit him in terms of scoring. Jerome Ford against Cincinnati. As we know, Cincinnati's defense is tough. Not tough. Tough if you're playing against a player that's matched up against them. Their defense is ass, is what I'm trying to say. And Nick Chubb going down with the broken foot means Jerome Ford is likely to get all the volume. The one thing that is kind of the shining light for me right now is the fact that Jameis Winston has been benched and Dorian Thomas-Robinson, is that his name? Yeah, has been named the starter.
Robinson.
So I'm hoping the Browns' offense is just god-awful and Jerome Ford just doesn't get that many touches in this game. Cincinnati just blows them out. Next, we look at CeeDee Lamb, who's currently questionable with that same AC joint shoulder sprain that he's had going on. He's probably going to end up playing regardless, but something to monitor for Charlie. Against Tampa Bay, it's a really good matchup. Tampa Bay puts up a lot of points, and as a bad offense and a bad team overall as the Cowboys, you're going to have to throw it a lot. JSN against Minnesota, another really favorable matchup. I mean, their defense is great, but they also score so many points that you just have to throw it in order to keep up. JSN has kind of supplanted DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett this season. He's gone from wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 1 over, really 14 short weeks. I am nervous for that. And then looking at Mark Andrews, versus Pittsburgh, I'm hoping, similar to what I talked about Derrick Henry, their defense can kind of stifle him and not let him be nearly as involved as he was last week. Keenan Allen against Detroit, obviously the Bears are going to have to throw it. Keenan Allen will probably get some volume. I'm just hoping that Caleb Williams doesn't have time to throw it. And then Rashad Bateman is Charlie's streaming option at the moment. It could be a myriad of guys from Rashad Bateman to Ray McLeod to Sterling Shepard to Kareem Hunt. I don't know who it's going to be, but that's clearly not my number one concern as for who's going to put up Charlie's points. Looking at my side, what were you going to say? Yeah.
I just want to point this out. So all of his matchups are like kind of really incredible. except for the Pittsburgh matchup, which he has 3 times. He has 3 different Ravens players. It's a good offense to be touched in on, but it's a lot of Baltimore. So, we'll see. That's just kind of an interesting thing that I'm noticing here that the number one seed has 3 players for Baltimore going out there
Yes.
today.
Um, yeah, and even though Charlie is the projection underdog, I feel like he is definitely the favorite here. I mean, you look at the
Yeah, it's
position
one
rank
seed.
of look at the position rank of his guys. I mean, Josh Allen 2, Derrick Henry 5, CeeDee Lamb 4, JSN 6, Mark Andrews 6. You've got 5 top 6 players on your team. I mean, it's really hard to beat that team, but I'm going to try and do it this week. And if we move over to the other side of the line here, we've got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase against Cleveland. As I mentioned when I talked about Jerome Ford, I'm hoping that Cincinnati can pull it together. Joe Burrow was seen on the side saying, "This is embarrassing. We should have beat the Titans by 80 to Zach Taylor last week." I'm expecting him to be fired up. I'm expecting Jamar Chase to be following suit just because that's what he does. He's wide receiver 1. He's going to get his. I don't expect him to be held out of the end zone in this one, and I'm going to need this stack to really pay dividends this week. This is where it all matters. I need another legacy game from these two guys in order to have a chance. If we look at the rest of my matchups, I've got some tough ones. Devon Achane against San Francisco. Their defense has been really good despite how bad their offense has been. However, Achane has really been the shining light on the Dolphins team aside from Jonnu Smith. So I'm hoping that he gets plenty of opportunities, catches a lot of screen passes. He's not super efficient as a runner this year, but he's been excellent as a receiver and a PPR goblin. Ramondre Stevenson against Buffalo. This looks like a really terrible matchup, but Buffalo actually has, I think, like the 31st ranked rushing defense so far. I think they're averaging like 4.6 yards per carry to running backs. And I'm hoping that the Patriots just rely on Ramondre at least in the first half. And if this game ends up being a tight game as a divisional matchup, divisional rivalry, Ramondre Stevenson should see plenty of touches. And then we move down to some tough matchups again. We've got Devontae Smith against Washington. Their secondary has been really good this year, despite what the preseason rankings indicated. But Washington also puts up a lot of points. So if the Eagles are going to have to win this one, I think they're going to have to do it on the back of their passing attack. Washington also has a pretty strong rush defense. And, the Eagles have already clinched the playoffs. They're probably going to try and go out there and get the first round bye, but they definitely don't want to run Saquon into the ground before the playoffs start. I think Devontae Smith, another week removed from that injury, likely to put up some good points here as well. And then Jalen Waddle and Jordan Addison. Jalen Waddle obviously questionable with that knee. It is a really big question mark for me on my team if he's even going to play. If he doesn't, it will likely be ETN subbing in over him, which I'm not a huge fan of. I would much rather have Waddle out there because of his explosive potential. But in a game against the San Francisco 49ers, I'm not really expecting him to go off that much anyway, so it wouldn't be the worst thing. Jordan Addison, though, we are going to need another great game against the Seahawks. Should be a shootout. The Vikings never fail to put up points. I just need the passes to go Addison's way. And then at tight end, this has been my whole all season, something I've been struggling with. I've been streaming probably 7-8 different tight ends at this point throughout the 15 weeks that we've seen. It seems like every tight end who touches my roster just wants to curl up and die. I kind of did a mini analysis with Henry and Eli last night. I had Cole Kmet until he went down with a shoulder thing week 3, and then I rode Mike Gesicki for a couple of weeks until he went down with a concussion. And then I picked up Dallas Goedert after Charlie dropped him, who then went down with a knee. And then I picked up Will Dissly, who also then went down with a knee. And then I picked up Zach Ertz, who just got a concussion. And now we're on to Brenton Strange, who already has some sort of lingering injury. So this has been the big hole for me. I'm going to have to pick the right tight end streamer. If Jalen Waddle doesn't play, I'm going to have to pick the right flex streamer. I've got a lot of tough matchups. I'm going to need the guys to perform to have a chance. I'm projected above Charlie, but I definitely feel like the underdog here.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the stack. I think that the biggest thing is the QB versus wide receiver 1 for both teams. Obviously you have the stack thing. He just has Josh Allen and CD, so I think that head to head there is really really solid in this matchup. And CD has Tampa Bay, and that's CD has had very bad games this season because he's dealing with QB issues and the Cowboys just sucking. But in good in plus matchups, he's also shown 40 bomb potential. So, obviously, if he taps into that, it's going to be a really rough ride for you. But at the same time, there's always just the chance of the Cowboys being complete ass cheeks, which they have shown to do on multiple occasions, and completely falling on their face. So, I think CD kind of looks to me to be sort of the X factor here because you already expect Jamar Chase to get 20 plus points. You expect Burrow, you expect Josh Allen. Like those things are gonna happen. CD, I expect him to probably get 20, but at the same time he could go for 40. If he goes for 40, it's gonna be a really rough ride. So, um, you know, this would be a fun game. You do have Travis Etienne if Jalen Waddle can't play against the Las Vegas Raiders. We just saw Bijan run all over them. It's not really a bad matchup for you if you do have to do that. So at least that's something that you have in your back pocket. It's not the end of the world, but at the same time, it is Jacksonville, which stinks. But it should be a good game. I'm excited to sort of see how it plays out.
Yeah, me as well. I hope that the team can put up one more good score, and I hope that Charlie can learn to fear the Reaper, as few have this season, but Alex just did in the playoffs, and that's what matters most. And then I'll throw it over to you.
Our other semifinal game here is the 7 seed versus the 3 seed Wyatt versus Noah, Tush Push Coach Bucky, and the Bucks boys. This is the 7 seed narrative. I won it all as a 7 seed last year. I think that it's just you go through the stresses of the regular season, you get to playoff, your team is just fully formed. They're ready to go. But Noah's team right now seems to be like it's the hottest team. It's the team to beat right now. Obviously all of that can change in one given week, but we'll get into the matchups here. I'll start with Wyatt's team here on the left. Jalen Hurts against Washington, AJ Brown against Washington. A game that I think both offenses are very capable of scoring. I could also see this divisional game getting kind of won in the trenches at the same time. Both teams kind of wanting to win this game. I don't think the division is really up for grabs anymore, but of course it's the classic rivalry game. So these NFC East teams are going to want to be duking it out. Um, if even if it is one of the trenches, you can always kind of assume Jalen Hurts will get in the end zone, but we'll see how much does this affect the pass game? Do they still want to air the ball out? We'll see what that does with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, who obviously are both very fantasy relevant this week. Um, Aaron Jones against Seattle, he hasn't really gotten a ton of touchdowns this season, but it seems like maybe this past week, kind of flipping the narrative. So we'll see if he continues that stretch. Tony Pollard, who's been really kind of up and down this season. He kind of got a little banged up in this past game. He's got Indianapolis, which is kind of not a great run defense, at least the past few years. I actually don't know how they matched up this year really, but he's been hit or miss. But you kind of just play him and hope that you get a good game from him. You can't, sometimes it could be 4, sometimes it could be 18. You kind of just have to expect it with Tony Pollard. He's been kind of strange this season. Brian Thomas against Las Vegas. We've already kind of talked about Brian Thomas. Kind of that boom bust, player, huge upside. He could also have a floor of 4. So obviously we'll see why it's going to need him to stay hot if he wants to win this game. Travis Kelsey, he kind of just stays on his projections every week. I expect him to do more of the same. DK Metcalf in a pretty solid matchup against Minnesota, and then Cortland Sutton against the Chargers, another divisional game there at the bottom. How has he been doing lately? I haven't actually followed too close. All right, 16-12 is last game, so it's still solid. He's actually been really kind of good this year. He's normally never on my draft board just because of what he's done to me in the past, but he's honestly had a pretty solid season with Bo Nix. So we'll see if he can keep that up going down the stretch here as well. But then for Noah's team, this has been such a hot team lately. Baker and Mike Evans go up against Dallas. I think this is a solid matchup. Baker seems to be getting his every single week. Mike Evans seems to be getting in the end zone every single week. I have a tough time believing that they're going to have any sort of difficulty with this matchup. I hope they lose this game. But for Noah's case, obviously, regardless of the results, they will probably score their points. Jahmyr Gibbs against Chicago. He is a patching. I don't think even defense matters for this Detroit team. They seem to be able to score against anybody. David Montgomery's hurt now. We'll see what this does to his role. We kind of talked about this earlier. I don't think he's going to be a bell cow, kind of like he's not going to be like a CMC Jonathan Taylor type of player.
He just
But I
doesn't.
do think that
in my opinion, he
God,
just doesn't have it in him. I think, like, I
yeah,
love
he's
Jameer
not that
Gibbs,
guy.
obviously hometown hero, from Dalton. I think that he is incredible in the role he is, but if you change the offense to be a single running back guy, I don't think that he has. I don't want to say the strength. I don't know what it is, but man, I hope he proves me wrong. I mean, for fantasy wise, I hope he doesn't because I obviously want to beat Noah in the championship if I make it there. Um, but I just don't think that he has what it takes to be that like Derrick Henry level, even Aaron Jones level. Like you're not going to give Jameer Gibbs 30 carries a game. Where if you're in a playoff game and if you can only run the ball, you can give Derrick Henry 30 carries a game and he'll probably average about 4 yards every time.
Yeah, I don't. He doesn't come up to me. I agree with you. It doesn't really seem to me like capable of being a bell cow. He could be obviously an RB1. He's very talented and capable, but at the same time, he can't be the 95% RB. He needs to be sort of in a committee. But I do think that his snap share will pick up, of course, with the absence of Dave Montgomery, but it won't be
Yes.
as drastic as maybe it could be with other RBs in a committee. We might see more of I think, who's their other guy? Craig Reynolds, maybe, is their
Yeah.
RB3 now? I don't know. It might be more of like a Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier type snap share where it is kind of like a 70-30. I think he's probably capable of fitting into that sort of role, but it
Yes.
definitely won't be like a 95%. But I do think he's gonna have a good game. I do think he's gonna be really good down the stretch, if he stays healthy, of course. And this Detroit offense has been so electric all season. So he's gonna continue to get his. Bucky Irving also in this matchup, three Tampa Bay players against Dallas. Nico Collins against Kansas City. He's gonna get his. I mean, at this point, Puga against the Jets. I feel like the Jets want me to think that this is a tough matchup, but now this is several weeks in a row that we've seen receivers do well against him. I'm blanking
Mm-hmm.
on the second person I'm thinking of. Obviously, Brian Thomas off the top of my head. There was someone, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, that was really, really good against the Jets.
They
You're pulling
played
it
the
up.
Dolphins last week.
Uh, was it the Dolphins game that someone went crazy on them?
I mean, Johnu put
Then
up like 20 something. No, he put up like 13 in that one. Jalen Waddle put up
was it?
40 almost. He put up 30 something.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And I feel like Tyreek also had a decent game. Can you see the box score?
I'm sure he put up
You click
20
on that?
something. Yeah.
But it's like the Dolphins haven't really been all like
Tyreek
that
Hill, 10
relevant.
receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown. So that's
Yeah,
28
bro.
points
So
right there.
that's
Yeah.
all of their receivers against the Jets secondary, who
Also,
are
Aaron
I
Rodgers' face here, dude.
yeah, dude, just like another disappointing L. I feel like I'm told that like the Jets in theory should be really good, like really bad matchup, but lately they just haven't been playing good football. So I think
And
maybe
I was gonna say, honestly, people talk about Sauce Gardner as being like this incredible elite top five cornerback all the time. If I saw something today talking about the actual like in-depth stats, he is one of the last in the league in terms of yards allowed after catch and separation allowed by receiver on a per route basis. Like I think he was like 33rd in the NFL in terms of cornerback, like on man to man matchups this year. He was averaging like a 1.7 yards of separation on average, which
yeah.
means he's just letting, like, that's almost 6 feet. You're just letting people blow by you.
Yeah, he's just getting burned by every wide receiver one. It's definitely a tough job, but at the same time, like
For how good he
there
played
are
last year, this isn't what you would
yeah,
expect.
and there are 31 other, cornerback ones that have to do the same exact thing. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting, I guess, to see, how sort of maybe he has fallen off. I don't really watch the Jets. I don't make a point to watch the Jets because why the hell would I? But it is definitely something to note that he has probably fallen off. Um, And then finally here, TJ Hawkinson in Seattle. He's been kind of just a consistent 10 points a game. I don't think he's gonna blow anybody away, but he'll be serviceable. That's all Noah really needs from him. And then I mentioned it earlier, Drake London. He has a pretty solid match against the Giants in theory. But with Michael Penix now at the helm, he's gonna start Drake London just because he's Drake London. He's still a top 10 wide receiver for fantasy, and he still has great upside. I mean, I hope Michael Penix comes in and just lights a fire under this Falcons offense, and maybe he can. Maybe he's capable of doing that. I could also see this being the classic, Falcons tomfoolery, complete butch job, but We'll see. I think that's sort of an X factor. Drake London could easily go at his typical, 6 for 60 and a touchdown. Seems to be sort of what he does all the time.
I think
I can easily see that happening with Michael Penix too.
Yes, I agree. I think clearly though this matchup comes down to two teams, the Eagles and the Bucks. I mean, Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, and then Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and Bucky Irving. If either of those matchups go sour one way or the other, it could change the look of this pretty quickly. I don't know what time both teams play, but if they both play at 1 p.m., that would be quite an interesting one. Let's look. The Eagles play the Commanders at 1 p.m. and the Cowboys play the Bucks at 8:20.
Prime time.
Is it a Sunday game? Is that a Monday game?
The 22nd is the Monday night game.
Oh, Christmas
is Wednesday. No, it's a Sunday night
Sunday.
game.
That's Sunday. So Wyatt will have to wait and see until Sunday night to see what a majority of Noah's points look like, but he's going to have to build up a pretty hefty lead early and hope he can repeat that Week 10 matchup where he bested Noah.
Yeah, so this will definitely be a Wyatt will have a big lead and just see if Noah can kind of close the gap.
Which is how Wyatt's season has been all season.
Yeah, that's a scary feeling when you're the one who has the lead. I hate having the lead. I love coming back. It's such a better, I don't know, it's a better outlook. Obviously, it doesn't really make a difference, but
either way, we'll take a look at the other two matchups that matter down here in the Poop Bowl playoffs. We have Jefferson. Wait.
They're not going to match up properly. We had this issue last year.
Let me just let me edit this now.
Are you able to edit them?
Yeah. I didn't know that it was fucked up. Otherwise, I would have done it.
No, it's good. It does this every year because me and Bennett just played each other, so the app is just kind of making its own playoff schedule.
View, edit, playoff bracket. Why won't it let me do it? Hello?
This can be sorted later. We can just do the breakdown.
Well, I wanted to see what the points were.
It'd still be the same. We just have to flop between the...
Yeah, that's just going to suck, dude. I mean, I can cut this out tomorrow. I'm not worried about it being in there. How did I get it to do it last year? I remember figuring it out.
Yeah, I don't remember. I also can't really see. It's like really small on my screen because I'm stupid.
You can click on my screen and I don't know how I did it. It was like edit head-to-head schedule, and then I just clicked on the view edit playoff.
Is it just not working?
Yeah, it's like I'm clicking on the button and nothing's happening.
I feel like last year,
this happened last year.
It just wouldn't work, and then you did it the next day, and it worked.
It's because they just haven't assigned. It's because they haven't assigned the button. Like, yes, I see edit playoff bracket, but that's not there for me. And I'm signed in. Oh, I don't know how I did it last year. I remember figuring it out eventually. Cause like I can't go back and edit. It's like cause like normally if this is a link, you can right click it and it's like open link in new tab. So they just haven't assigned the links to these buttons.
Maybe it'll be out tomorrow because I feel like we had this issue last year and you weren't able to do it, and then you went back and you were able to do it later. I mean, I don't know what it looked like when you went back and did it, but
yeah, I don't remember either. Either way, we'll just chug along. I'll cut this out.
Yeah, what we'll just have to look at his projection and just compare it to mine. Like we know the matchups on our end.
I'm just gonna go to members and pull up your team as well. All right, doing a little bit of a weird matchup here in the Poop Bowl playoffs, second round. The actual matchup that matters. We have Jefferson Starship taking on the Blue Medical Tent. Bennett in 4-10, and you at 5-9. Bennett currently projected 116.9, and you're projected 125.4. We will look at Bennett's matchup first. Bennett currently the underdog. CJ Stroud against Kansas City. You know, Kansas City's defense has been pretty tough, and CJ Stroud has been pretty mid. I mean, he is at the bottom of quarterback 2 rankings now, being ranked 19. I mean, this is just god awful. I don't know how Bennett has stuck with him the entire season. He has Caleb Williams, I guess, but I don't know what he does here. We pointed this out many weeks ago, probably back in like week 6, but the quarterback issue is a big thing for him, and also the running back issue. Rachaad White had been not really performing well. He's come on as of late, and he's also in that Dallas game, but Bucky Irving has pretty much taken over his main role. I mean, we're seeing similar to what you were talking about, that 70-30 split between Bucky Irving and Rachaad White now, coming in mostly on third downs, catching a lot of screen passes, a couple of short yardage situations, but he's really not the main guy anymore. Bennett's going to need him to get in the end zone, at least have a chance over you. James Cook against New England, this is a pretty good matchup. New England's rush defense has been okay this year, but, I mean, James Cook is going to get his, and the Bills are definitely going to score. Justin Jefferson against Seattle, the great matchup. Minnesota does great against any team this year. Jettas is going to get his. Seattle's defense has been okay, but I don't expect any hiccups here. Jerry Jeudy against Cincinnati. I mean, you know, if you asked me this 5 days ago what I thought about this matchup, I'd say primo. I'd say Jerry Jeudy's locked in to be a wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 this week, at least. You ask me today, though, and the story changes, because with DTR being declared the starter, there goes all of your volume for Jerry Jeudy. He was Jameis Winston's number 1 target. I believe in the weeks since Jameis Winston took over as the starter, Jerry Jeudy was like wide receiver 8 in those past couple of weeks. Incredible play out of him, and he's still projected to do that, but I just don't know if it's going to be the same with Dorian Thomas-Robinson. Tucker Kraft against New Orleans. I mean, he's been an okay option this year. He's tight end 8, but the tight end position itself just hasn't been that spectacular. And New Orleans secondary has been pretty good, apparently, against tight ends. He's only projected 7.5. And then lastly, Malik Neighbors against Atlanta. He's currently questionable, and the Giants' offense is awful. But the Falcons' defense is also pretty bad. So we'll see what Malik Neighbors does. I mean, he got in the end zone last week for the first time in like 7 weeks. If he can do that again, it'll help Bennett. But if not, it may be another poor outing. And then lastly, Isaac Guerendo, who is also questionable, matchup against Miami. If he's healthy, you know, he's likely going to see the workhorse share of the snaps like he did before he went down to injury in the previous week. But if not, you know, the 49ers are pretty much out of the playoffs at this point. And if he's not healthy, I don't know why they would try and force him out there. So Bennett kind of lingering on some injury issues. He's got tough matchups kind of around the board outside of 2 that I see. But Jerry Jeudy's situation has changed so much that the matchup might not matter. And then...
Yeah, I think other than his injuries, really the biggest thing is going to be the Jerry Jeudy, situation.
Yeah.
Like you said, obviously that's a primo matchup. Like it is on paper. But it's like, is DTR capable of still making him? He could be. Like, he could be capable of still being good. So, just kind of depends if Jerry Jeudy is going to be what he has been or if he's going to be a complete dud. I think that'll go a long way.
And
I'll kind of break down my team. So I did set my roster for this, so this is finalized. I hadn't looked at this team in over a week. I was just disgusted with it. But Kyler Murray against Carolina, he's been pretty bad all season, to be honest. But maybe this is kind of his opportunity to have one of those really good games that he has had them. And this is obviously a very, very positive matchup. Alvin Kamara, who's kind of I'm sort of TBD if he's even going to play. He doesn't play till Monday. So that's kind of something that really needs to be monitored.
Yes.
Because, obviously, when you don't have a replacement for him, things can get pretty sketchy. So
I mean, if I were you, I would probably pick up what's the backups? I mean,
that like Kendra Miller.
Yeah, Kendra Miller.
If he's not rostered, but yeah, it's gonna be shady. So we'll see. He's got Green Bay, not a very good matchup, but obviously, Kamara is just that dual threat guy, so he's been pretty reliable all season. He hasn't been fantastic, and he's still somehow
What running
two.
back two?
He's really fallen off lately, though. I think he's like he was so good at the beginning of the season, fallen off significantly. Bijan Robinson, not really a reason to discuss that. Cooper Cup versus the Jets. He's coming off his first donut since 2019 or something. Um, I don't expect that to happen again. We already kind of talked about the Jets secondary when we talked about, Puka Nacua. So we'll just see how the Rams offense functions. They were really bad in that 49ers game. I expect them to do a little bit better this week. And of course, Cooper Cup will be a recipient if they do well. Jameson Williams for the boom bust upside. He's shown flashes of big plays. So you kind of just always hope for that. Brock Bowers against Jacksonville, a primo matchup, primo player. Quarterback situation is Desmond Ritter, who looked horrible against the Falcons. Jacksonville defense is a little bit worse than the Falcons, but still nothing promising. We'll see if he can get his. And then Najee Harris in an awful matchup against Baltimore, and Brian Robinson in an awful matchup against Philadelphia. So, in a team that's very running back heavy, I definitely don't really have that many solid running back matchups. And then you pair that with an Alvin Kamara issue. It could be a little tricky for me. But we'll see. Hopefully, I could just get the 120, 130, and just get the job done. So, I'm not looking for a massive week. I think me and Bennett are probably just shooting for the 120 mark and just see which team, falls short this week. So, we'll see. Best of luck to Bennett. I don't really want to play in the poop bowl. That would kind of suck. I'd like to just hang this team up and, get it off. Stop
next.
thinking about it because it really just was not one of my better creations. So I'd like to sort of put it behind me, but as I'm sure Bennett would like to do the same.
But not done yet. Got to win and get out. Otherwise, you suffer the punishment, and that's what this matchup comes down to. It's really
this one actually matched up properly. It's kind of nice.
Yes, that is very nice. And another matchup that really matters. We have Poop Bowl Inc. He's in it. He's in it to win it and get out. He got his first win 2 weeks ago against Al to eliminate his playoff hopes. Here we have Eli at 1-13 in 12th place against Sam 6-8 in 9th after losing the play-in game to Al. Al gets out of the Poop Bowl punishment, and Sam finds himself here in the Poop Bowl semifinals. 118-101 is the current projection. Sam with a heavy favorite. And let's go ahead and dive into Sam's team first here. We have Patrick Mahomes against Houston. Houston's been a really good defense so far. Patrick Mahomes coming off that ankle injury last week. He isn't currently questionable. I would imagine that means he probably full practiced. He's probably going to play, but Kansas City is so far ahead. I think that they've clinched the division, they've clinched the playoffs, and with that win last week, they may have even clinched the bye. I'm not sure yet. May need another win to do that, but if they have already clinched the bye and Pat Mahomes is anyway hurt, you could very well see a Carson Wentz come in and take over the reins here for these last couple of weeks. Rico Dowdle against Tampa Bay. I mean, it's a decent matchup. Tampa Bay's rush defense has been pretty good. Dallas's defense has been awful, but Rico Dowdle has kind of cemented himself as the guy, at least there. Josh Jacobs against New Orleans, another pretty tough matchup. I don't know why I just had to brain fart. I was like, I swear Josh Jacobs was on Wyatt's team, but no. Josh Jacobs against New Orleans. Green Bay's offense has been really good, but the Saints have kind of held their opponents to some low-scoring matchups, but they've also let some teams blow them out of the water. If Green Bay can do that, Josh Jacobs will definitely be involved. He's currently projected 23, which is a huge amount of his points. Sam's team, I mean. Garrett Wilson against the Rams. The Rams secondary has been very susceptible this year. If Aaron Rodgers can kind of get that arm going the way he did last week to Devontae Adams, but instead of Garrett Wilson, that could shift things in this matchup. Khalil Shakir against Buffalo. We've talked about this Buffalo matchup a lot. I think it goes one of two ways. The Bills either blow them out, or it ends up being a close Buffalo win because of the division rivalry. Khalil Shakir has been really good over the past 4 or 5 weeks especially. I expect him to do about projected. Sam Laporta against Chicago, pretty tough defense, and he has been fairly underwhelming this year, especially for how highly he was drafted. We'll see what he can do. DeAndre Swift against Detroit, the other side of the ball in that same game. Detroit's got a pretty tough defense. I mean, at least they did before all the injuries. I believe they had another defensive tackle go down for the rest of the season in the game last week. along with Aiden Hutchinson and a number of other guys that have been performing well. So their defense is mostly made up of like homeless guys that they pulled off the street at this point. I don't see DeAndre Swift really struggling in this matchup, but I could see a situation where Detroit gets up by so many points that Chicago has no choice but to throw the ball, and then DeAndre Swift is kind of left waiting. And then Deebo Samuel has just been so disappointing this year. The matchup doesn't even matter. I mean, he's wide receiver 50. The dude is a bum. I wouldn't expect anything, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sam starts somebody else over him. Looking at Eli's side, a big change that's happened within the past couple of days. Obviously, Eli, the owner of David Montgomery going down for the season is tough. I mean, that was a big portion of Eli's scoring in combination with guys like James Conner and T. Higgins, especially over the past couple of weeks, and in his one win. Him going down really hurts, being the second highest position ranked player on Eli's team behind James Conner at 10. And he's going to have to try and pivot. I mean, he has Zach Charbonnet, but, Kenneth Walker may come back and play this week, and it looks like Zach Charbonnet's a little banged up himself. Justin Herbert against Denver, really tough matchup. Denver's defense has been good this year, and Justin Herbert's banged up, so we'll see what happens there. James Conner against Carolina, though, that is your primo matchup of the week. That is the one that you're going to write home about, and that's the one that you're going to need to score 20-plus points to have a chance in this matchup. James Conner has been great this year. He was on my roster for a while. I traded him away, and he's performed exactly where he was. I think he was running back 10 when I traded him. He fell down to like running back 18, but now he's back up. Eli's hoping he can...
30 bomb.
Yeah. 2-touchdown game against my own team, the New England Patriots. Justice Hill, who is currently projected to be his running back 2, which is not great, against a really tough matchup. Pittsburgh, he is projected 8 points. He gets a lot of that receiving action, catches some screens, but you're going to have to hope that the game script gets him involved more because 8 points is not going to do it. Wan'Dale Robinson, who is also questionable against Atlanta. I don't even need to talk about this. The Giants have been so bad. I mean, Eli is a madman for starting Wan'Dale Robinson anyway. He is just been awful. I mean, 7.8, 7.8, 2.6, 9.7, 10.1. It's been since week 10 that he even put up double-digit points, and then the last time before that was week 6. I mean, he put up double-digit points 5 out of the first 6 weeks, and then that's when Eli traded for him from Henry, and he has just been awful since then. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Eli goes with somebody else like D-Pop over him, and I may even suggest it. Here I will never influence somebody's starting roster outside of the podcast, but T. Higgins against Cleveland, we kind of talked about that with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow in my matchup. Pretty plus matchup here. The Cleveland offense is projected to be really bad. Should give Cincinnati plenty of opportunities, but T. Higgins appears to have a little bit of an injury. We'll have to see what the practice field at Cincinnati and the Hill tells us this week in regards to T. Higgins' health. Pat Freiermuth against the Baltimore Ravens, a pretty tough matchup. I mean, the Ravens' defense has been really surprisingly good, and Pat Freiermuth has been all right. He's been getting a lot of touchdown efficiency, which has kept him at that tight end 12 spot, but going to be a tough one here. And then Jacoby Myers, who's also questionable against Jacksonville. They are one of the worst defenses in the league. You're really going to need him to perform well to win this game. And lastly, Romeo Doubs against New Orleans. Their defense has been all right, like I said. And Romeo Doubs has been pretty mid so far. Wide receiver 58, I think he's had some injury issues, but clear to see why Eli is a 17-point underdog in this matchup right now. And I would say Eli is staring down the barrel of another Poop Bowl appearance. I mean, 2 in 3 years would definitely not be great for, the confidence in the team and the confidence of the players that you manage. I mean, you had a playoff appearance last year, but if you immediately turn that around and go back to the Poop Bowl, was that playoff appearance just a fluke?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously the favorite to lose. I mean, you're going to say that about the 1-13, 12 seed, but he's coming off a big week, so like he did just do it. He put up 140 or whatever it was in week 14. I don't know what he just did in week 15. I guess I'm saying coming off of last time he played. So it's like, you get your one like fluky week, and like that's enough to get you out of the Poop Bowl playoffs. So we'll just see if he just continues to be that consistent
But
90 to
hey,
100 point team, and like that's just not going to do it. But
Eli putting up the good score last week, I mean, it goes to show the importance of not getting the poop bowl bye. If you're going to end up being a poop bowl team, you really want to be the 8th or the ninth seed and have that opportunity to win a game in week 1. We saw
I
it.
don't know what he did in week 15. I was really just referring to week 14, to be honest with you.
Oh, well, either way,
So,
he did put
yeah.
up a good score last week. I think he put up
Okay.
somewhere around the 120 mark.
Okay.
But either way, we saw it with Bennett in the round 1 on his and your bye week, put up 140, and then Eli putting up a decent score last week, not getting an opportunity to win those games and get out of the Poop Bowl punishment, and now being here in the Poop Bowl semifinals.
Yeah, and you never know with these teams down here that they're all none of these teams are good. Like, let's be real. Like, I just put up like I didn't start a lineup, but I would have only put up like 80 points. Like, that's not going to beat anybody. So like you never really know if your opponent could just have like a complete
A poop
stinker.
matchup.
You
Yeah,
could
you're in the
just
Poop Bowl
yeah,
for
and
a
you
reason.
yeah, you could just luck out of a win. So we'll see. There's still some cards to be dealt, and four relevant matchups that are going to go on this week, and then three guys now, right? Yeah, three guys now that are done with their seasons, or
Yeah.
four guys now that are done with their seasons. So
Tal, Al, Alex, and
Henry,
that's Henry. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
down to 8
we're
guys
gonna
that really
we'll
matter.
cut it in
Either,
half next week.
yeah, for the championship or the Poop Bowl. And next week it'll go down to 4 guys that matter. 2 matchups after this week will be all that remains. Kevin, I think it's time. We're into week 16 now. We can do a little bit of saucy discussion. Who's your Poop Bowl favorite?
Eli, I mean, does that really?
What's your Poop Bowl favorite matchup? What do you expect the matchup to be? I'm gonna say
Oh,
Eli Bennett. I think that it is kismet, and it is too ironic for it not to happen. That Bennett puts up over double your score in the game that doesn't matter, and then you probably pull out a close win here this week, and then it ends up being Bennett Eli.
yeah. I don't. My team is weird too. It's shown really good flashes, and then it'll go in the next week, and it'll completely fall off. So like, my team is certainly capable of being
But you
good. It's
just
just kind
fell
of
off, so maybe you're due for
yeah.
a
So I am.
flash.
I am due for positive regression. That's true. Um, I don't think my team is really poop bowl worthy team, but I mean maybe I'm being biased. I don't think it's that bad, but at the same time like it's shown flashes of being complete horseshit, so like I wouldn't really be too shocked. I think me versus Bennett should be a good game, and I do think I don't want to curse him. I do think Sam should win, but anything is possible at this point. We saw it with Sam last year. We thought he was going to lose. We thought he wouldn't even play in the poop bowl. He
Yes.
beat Noah, who barely missed the playoffs. Like
Yes.
Noah's team last year was like relatively solid.
It was
Um,
like similar to yours this year. Like,
yeah, it's
obviously you
yeah,
missed the playoffs by a pretty big margin, but
a
Noah
little bit
last
worse.
year barely missed. Lost in the play-in game. Lost to Sam in round
Yeah,
2. After Sam went 2-12, and then barely. I think he beat beat Charlie by like 10, 15 points or something. I think it was pretty close.
yeah, and he almost took my playoff spot. And it was the difference between two points in a Joe Mixon week 13 game. That was the difference between him making the playoffs and him almost losing the poop bowl. Pretty crazy.
And
Um,
that's the difference between you being a Carpet Capital Football League champion or missing the
yeah,
playoffs back-to-back years.
yeah, I would have missed. I would have not definitely not lost the poop bowl last year, but I would have been in the playoffs, which would have sucked. So poop bowl playoffs, that is. Yeah, it really is crazy what 2 fantasy points can do to an entire season, and honestly, an entire like career. Like now, I'm forever
A
a
champion.
champion.
You're
Yeah,
engraved
like,
on the trophy forever.
yeah. So it is crazy what 2 fantasy points can do to you.
But yeah, I mean, that'll wrap up our Week 16 review. I had a lot of fun in this one. There was a lot of hypothesizing about what may happen, a lot of reflecting on what has happened this year, and a lot of hopeful thinking, both for you and me. Although we're in very different spots in the league right now, we're both in semifinals of some sort, and you're hoping to get yourself out of it, and I'm hoping to take one step closer. Got to knock down Charlie this week, and I wish everybody with a matchup that matters the best of luck, except for Charlie, obviously. Josh Allen's fall off is going to happen just in time, and you are going to learn to fear the Reaper.
I'll be honest with you. I've got Josh Allen in our dynasty league, and I am facing Henry this week in that, so that's also a fun matchup outside this league. But I've got Josh Allen, so I'm gonna have to be rooting against you on that one. I'm sorry, but it's for the love of the game. It's for the love of the game. I do have Devontae Smith, so I'm with you there.
Hey. All right, well, that does it for us. I wish you guys all the best of luck. Kevin, I wish you the best of luck in your matchup this week. Go out there and kill them. Thank you, sir.
Peace, guys.
Peace, fellas.